Good evening, I'm Tony Hannity, and welcome to the 3Ts. I want to start off by apologizing for starting a little late. I was supposed to start at 10:30 Pacific Standard Time, and here we are, very close to 11 o'clock. But in any event, let's get started with the news. Today, there wasn't a huge amount of stuff that I want to talk about, and in fact, it's the top of the hour, or I guess the half an hour. I want to talk about something that came out, well, I guess it was today. I don't want to call her a colleague per se, but we'll say colleague. Mary Jo Foley, infamous blogger and technological journalist over at ZDNet and allaboutmicrosoft.com, wrote an article this morning stating that in the title it says Microsoft warns of pending support deadlines for Windows 7, Office 2010, Service Pack 1, Windows Server 2003, and more. Now, just based off of that headline, majority of the other tech blogs, Windows blogs, and things of that nature, all they saw was pending support deadlines for Windows 7, which in their mind meant Windows 7 is dead. There's no more support for Windows 7. Everybody needs to jump off a bridge because Windows 7 was the best thing since sliced bread, apparently. Which I don't understand, and all is bad. Everyone moved to Chromebooks. That's actually nowhere near of what was being talked about. So, Foley dives into definitions a little bit more. There's the standard mainstream support that when you buy a product from Microsoft, for generally about 5 years, you get your mainstream support from Microsoft. That includes security bugs, debugging, that includes software fixes, and also the ever so popular feature upgrades. You know, like for example, recently there was an update to I think it was like Word. Within Office that allowed you to have a lot more collaboration with people. So that's free, and that's because you paid for Word and you paid for Microsoft Office. And then past the 5 years, there's extended support. Now, extended support means that if you own the license to these particular products or services, products, if you own the license to the particular products, you can continue using them, and security-wise, you will continue to get security patches. So that's how XP, for example, was able to have a shelf life of around 10 years because past the standard mainstream support, Microsoft kept on extending the extended support because there's so many people using XP. And within that extended support time frame, people got the security bugs and those kinds of security updates. But as it stands right now, after the extended support, then there's the end of support, which means there's not going to be any more fixes, no more patches whatsoever. So if you're still running Windows XP, you're in that time frame right now. So when people read this and said, oh, there's no more support for Windows 7, everyone flew off the handle. That's not true. So basically what Microsoft came out and said was there's a fair amount of major products that we've had that are old that we will end mainstream support for. And basically what that means is mainstream support ends on January 13th, 2015. It's like, oh, 2015, that's a ways away. Actually, no, that's like 7 months from now. But again, that's just mainstream support. That means that if you are expecting new features to Windows 7, probably by now you would expect that there aren't going to be any new features to Windows 7. There's going to be like security patches and things of that nature, but you're not going to have obviously some of the Windows 8 capabilities because it's a completely different monster. And essentially the support, or rather the extended support, is another 5 years. So ipso facto, if you are running Windows 7, you will be supported at least until 2020, as long as Microsoft doesn't extend it that far out come 2020. So we're going through the whole same spiel as people did with XP. It's like people thought back then Microsoft was going to kill XP. They didn't. They kept on extending support, extending the support. Windows 7 came out, but people didn't want to upgrade. They just wanted to stay with XP, extending support. XP is dead, and now you can't find Windows 7 anywhere. So here's my little tidbit for you. If you're running Windows 7, good on you. But go out and try to find a friend, go to Best Buy, get a really good in-depth explanation if you have the time, or maybe not in-depth, but a crash course explanation of the features and utilities of Windows 8 that might make sense to you, that might better your experience. Now, we know that there's some sort of version of Windows in the near future, and due to my employment, I can't really speculate or talk about that because, to be honest with you, I don't know anything. That's way above my pay grade. But you know, what you have seen is what I have seen, and that's all I've seen. So I don't know anything past that. But with that being said, if that does come out, and let's just say that it's another version of Windows that's not connected to Windows 8. And again, this is just pure speculation. Let's just say that they do call it Windows 9. That doesn't mean that Windows 7, just like I mentioned, is going to end support. Windows 7 is going to at least have support until 2020. So make your moves. Be vigilant, diligent about it, and be smart about it. But don't wait to the last minute. I mean, I think this whole XP Windows 7 debacle, if you will, kind of woke some people up. But I would hate to see in 2020 people saying, "Oh, they changed it up again. Now I'm on Windows 7 and nothing is supported on Windows." That was like over 10 years ago. Come on. So in any event, the other products that are kind of underneath that. Now, this is all versions of Windows 7: Enterprise, Home Premium, Home Basic, Ultimate, and Starter Student, one of the two. This also applies to more on the Enterprise version of it if you're running all versions of Windows Server 2003, 2008 R2, and all editions of Windows Storage Server 2008. So mainstream support for all these are going to end January 13th, 2015. Again, that's mainstream support. You will continue to get security support. I think maybe that's what they should call it. If they call it extended support, it's still kind of I don't know, it's still a little vague. Saying security support is a little bit more like pinpointing, okay, at least I'm going to have the security updates and maybe not so much the feature updates that obviously you're probably never going to get. And then 2020 comes along, well, we'll see how that goes from then. So let me know. I mean, if you're on Windows 7 right now, is that something that, like, hearing about this, knowing now, the things that you know now, knowing that Windows 7 is essentially going to be kaput from what we can tell by 2020, is that long enough of information for you to say, okay, I need to be prepared to maybe not only get a new operating system, but maybe a whole new computer? I mean, computers are kind of like cars, like they're not bought as readily as, phones would be. But you kind of hold on to your computer, and obviously with all the personal information and everything, it's kind of a drag to have to move it off and put it onto another computer. I mean, heck, people pay Best Buy and Staples all the time to have the technicians do all that kind of tedious work. But knowing now what happened last month, or I guess back in April, knowing how that was and knowing what we know for the future, is this going to make you, as a user of Windows, more aware of how Microsoft is doing these things, or does it irk you? Does it, for lack of a better phrase, piss you off? And you're going to move to another operating system, say, screw it, I'm going to go to this operating system where I feel that the company supports them for time evermore. The iPhone came out in 2007. Apple doesn't support that anymore, not the original one. The older versions of OS X or OS 10 or just the older versions of the desktop or laptop for Mac, they're not supported anymore. But you don't hear people griping about that. I'm just saying Microsoft does kind of get a little bit of a bad rep over this. But for now, if you are at a party and you hear somebody say, "Oh, I heard Microsoft's ending support for Windows 7," you need to rush over to that conversation and say, "No, you don't know what you're talking about. You clicked on one of those link bait headlines and you misread what you think you know, and this is what is actually happening." And you will make that person feel really, really stupid, or you'll look like a jackass. One of the two, or both. But in any event, at least you'll be aware and informed. Next up, something that is really cool for me is that Google announced at Google I/O that they would be allowing Chromecast users to cast their phone screen to the TV. So this is something that I've been kind of looking for without having to root my phone for a very, very long time. And essentially, in the Chromecast app of your phone, and as it is right now, the Chromecast app is only going to work on certain phones, and I'll get into that in just a little bit. When the Chromecast app of your phone, you basically say you want to connect to a particular Chromecast in the household, and once it's connected and you say cast screen, then whatever screen you're on, it'll cast up to your TV. Now, I don't know if that works with games. I don't know if that works with like I said, every TV, every screen, but I don't know if there are any kind of limitations. For example, if you are watching a video on your screen and you want to cast it to your nearby TV over Wi-Fi, is that video going to be choppy? Is that video going to also be able to do audio playback? Is that video, is that video going to play at all? And the fact of the matter is, we don't know. I mean, the thing is, right now it is in beta, and it hasn't even rolled out to the masses just yet. This article came out from TechCrunch earlier today, and a bunch of other articles from other news outlets, and every single one of them say the same thing. This is a beta, and it'll roll out to select Samsung, HTC devices, and LGs, and definitely the Nexus and Google Play Edition devices. But in any event, this is just like Google does with all their other kind of big rollouts. It's going to be a rolling rollout. So your brother might get it tomorrow, and you might get it on Saturday, which is, beyond me how they stagger it. But let me know in the comments here, on Twitter, or on Google+. Let me know if you try it. Let me know if you like it. Let me know if you have been using Allcast all this time, and this is just kind of old news, old hat to you. Because that was the one thing for me. The Allcast app that was created by Kosh, who was hired by the Clock Mod team, who does all the mods and roots and everything. That was a really cool app, but I don't mod my phone. I don't really root my phone. I rooted like 3 phones, and it was cool. It was nice, But for the most part, I didn't really necessarily have a feature that I couldn't get with a regular standardized operating system versus getting it on a rooted phone. Back in the day, when I had my phone rooted, I got unlimited tethering capability for free, which was cool. But now I have limited bandwidth cap and all this other stuff, and I have my phone's a hotspot anyway, so yeah. So in any event, that it is what it is. But this is very, very cool, and I'll probably be doing a video review of some sort, or kind of an impressions later on. I'm trying to figure out how to do that logistically, because I do this here in my office, but I guess I would have to go upstairs to my room where my Chromecast is, and have to clean up. I'm not very good at that. Let's go ahead and go to the Q&A section, because I did notice somebody had a question and it went away. But somebody asked me, what OS do I use as my daily driver? I think it was something to that effect. Right now, I have 2 operating systems that I use as my daily drivers. One is Android, and I've been using Android since at least 2008, 2009, around-ish, if you will. And I've been loving it, haven't looked back, even with all the gripes and, issues that were there in the beginning. It's an operating system built by engineers, for engineers, and for geeks and things like that. The likes of HTC, LG, and Samsung put their skins on it and made it look beautiful, and then Google came along and said, hey, let's actually get some really good designers like Matthias Duartes and make it look really cool, hence Android L. Which I still don't know what they're going to call it. I really hope they don't call it L. Because if they call it L, it's going to get me confused, and I'm going to think of one of the co-protagonists in the Death Note, which is a really good Japanese anime show, which you can find on Netflix. It's really, really good. Kind of scary, very eerie. Makes you want to think. But yeah, that's one thing. That's one phone that I use. My other phone that I use is it's over here. Oh, I dropped my SIM card. But it's a Windows phone. Windows Phone 8. Actually, this is the Samsung Ative SE, which is exclusively on Verizon here in the United States. I don't know if they have it under any other name internationally, but it's running Windows Phone 8 officially, and I updated it to Windows Phone 8.1 as the developer preview. And as a developer preview, you know, your mileage may vary. It may contain nuts, and mine contains a lot of nuts, which sounds awkward. No, mine has some issues. And also there's some other physical issues with the phone itself, which had to do with gravity and concrete floor. That's all I'll say about that. But in any event, my overall experience between Windows Phone and Android, I'll just say this real quick, and then we'll get back to the stories. Android, in the beginning, the line was eventually it'll get to Android. Eventually some developer will make a clone of it or a third-party replacement, or it'll get big enough that it'll finally get onto Android. One popular example is Angry Birds. In fact, Angry Birds didn't even get to the Google Play Store. I guess it was Android Market back then. It didn't get to the Google Play Store first. It went to the Amazon Play Store first, if I'm not mistaken. And it was a nightmare trying to explain that to people. It's like, no, you have to download another app store from Amazon. It's like, Amazon does apps? It was like, yeah, they do now, kind of. Do they have a phone? No, they don't have a phone. They probably won't have a phone ever. That's what we said. And so yeah, now Angry Birds is found on everything, including your pillowcases and towels. So that was how it was for Android back in those days. Admittedly so, it really grew because of the Droid line with Verizon, and then Samsung just going gusto with the whole Galaxy 2, Galaxy 3, or I guess Galaxy S2, Galaxy S3, and so on and so forth. And more non-geeky people, or techie people, if you will, were looking to Android and say, oh, that's a really good operating system. Not just an alternative to iOS, just a really good operating system. Like, wow, I can do so many things with this. I have an alternative keyboard. I have swipe down menus. I have this. I have that. I have widgets. There's no other really good operating system that has that. And so, yeah, that grew from there, and I stuck with that. Now over to Windows Phone. It's kind of going through the same growing pains. With Windows Phone 8.1, it adds, admittedly so, a lot of features that you'll find in iOS and Android. And when an Android person looks at it, they'll say, oh, we've had that for years. Okay, good for you. What do you want, a cookie? The fact of the matter is, Microsoft is reinventing their whole mobile structure. I mean, they had Windows Mobile 6.5, which, essentially they're trying to put an XP desktop on a small screen. I got to tell you, if you haven't tried it, don't try it. I mean, back in those days, it was kind of cool. You had some modifications you could do, but it was really clunky, got old, batteries sucker. It was just really, really bad. Now, it's a beautiful experience. And if you have Windows 8, 8.1, or the Xbox One, those kind of live tiles, they just make sense. You really have to kind of understand the psyche of it is essentially widgets. They're live. They just give you the most important information that are at least important to you on a, 10-second cycle. It just kind of goes. And when it comes to apps, the App Store is getting so much better. You got some awesome apps like Instagram's on there. You got Vine, and yes, they're not all the same features. You don't have all the same filters you have on the Android app version, or there's no Candy Crush, there's no Google Maps, there's no official Gmail, and the Waze app that I use, it's not updated as well as it is on Android or iOS, but it's there. And the more and more people start realizing that Windows Phone 8, or rather Windows Phone 8.1, is kind of a 180 versus how it was with Windows Phone 7 and Windows Phone 8. In my heart of hearts, I do believe that it's going to start getting a lot more traction. It's going to be tough, but there is definitely room for at least 3 major mobile operating systems out there. Another Linux-based one, we'll see. Firefox Mobile, which is essentially HTML5-based mobile operating system. Great for the emerging markets. It's awesome. I'm all for the competition. And for me to have these 2 phones really gives me a really nice broad picture of the mobile arena, if you will, when it comes to the different apps and features and what's more important to the overall company that runs the operating systems and heads them up and designs them. And it's only going to get better. So if I had to tell a new person that has never bought a smartphone before which phone that they would want, obviously it does come down to them, like, how techy do they want it. But truth be told, I showed this to somebody who is not, this is the Windows phone, I'm kind of throwing it. I showed the Windows phone to somebody who's not techy whatsoever. In fact, they have a flip phone. And they heard things about Windows Phone. They really heard, obviously, they heard a ton about iOS and Android, and they've seen that before. But I showed them my Windows Phone, and I said, look, these are the apps that are important to you, and just look at it. And without having to touch it, it said new email, new text message, calendar information, Facebook notifications. It was just there. It's like, oh, if you want more, now you can swipe down. You have a notification shade just like you do on Android and iOS. I was like, and the individual was very, very pleased. Now, I don't know if they actually went out and bought a phone, but the fact of the matter is, if you actually sit down and give it a shot, at least 15 minutes, just give it a shot and open your mind, you'll realize that it's not as bad as people will say. And that's the same spiel I give to those who say Windows 8 is a dud. It's not. You just are kind of climbing in with the bandwagon without actually giving it a shot. So I'm going to take a step down from my soapbox here. Cool. Let's go ahead and move on, though. And I really only have like 2 other things that I want to talk about. This is an iOS rumor, and we haven't really had those for a little bit. But essentially, it looks like the next iPhone 6 is going to have a darker black color, or I guess it's not going to be called space gray. I guess you'll still maybe have a space gray, but this phone looks like it is space black. I don't know what else they could call it. Dead black? I'm not sure. So, well, in any event, it's a darker color. I don't know why this was news. And last but not least, Verizon Wireless here in the United States is getting an exclusive tablet from a company that they worked with back in 2011, I think it was 2011, 2012, for the Sony Ericsson's Play. It was a PlayStation phone. I forget what the name of it was, but that was one of the last Sony phones that Verizon held, and now they are going to sell exclusively here in the United States the Sony Xperia Z2 tablet. It's available in stores on July 17th, and you can pre-order it as of tomorrow, which is really in 40 minutes from now if you're watching live. This was announced back at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona earlier this year. And according to Fandroid, now unfortunately I wasn't personally there, but according to the gentleman at Fandroid, Chris Chavez, I trust his reviews and his insight. He said that this was a beautiful tablet, and in terms of like Android tablets, it was definitely one of the top notch. Now, one thing that's really nice about it is that it is water resistant, just like all the other Sony Xperia kind of devices are. And in terms of pricing, it's going to run you about $600 through Verizon with no contract. But if you're okay with signing a 2-year contract, they'll knock off $100, and it's only $500. Regarding the specifications of this tablet, you are looking at a 10-inch tablet or 10.1-inch tablet, 1920 by 1200 display, Qualcomm Snapdragon 801 2.3 gigahertz quad-core processor, 3 gigs of RAM, 16 gigs of flash memory, which is internal memory. You have a micro SD slot, so you can expand that. They don't mention how much, but I'm assuming it's going to be 128 gigabytes. Worst case scenario, we'll just say 64 gigs. 8.1 megapixel rear shooter, and then a 2.2 megapixel front-facing shooter, so you can still take some pretty nice selfies if you take selfies with tablets. If you do, you're weird. The 6,000 milliamp battery, 4G LTE, obviously, because it's going to be on Verizon Wireless, and then all the other kind of standard Bluetooth, NFC, MHL, and then Android KitKat 4.4. And probably one of the most important features that needs to be on all tablets, front-facing stereo speakers. The new Surface Pro 3 has them, and and it makes a world of a difference. I've got the original Surface Pro, and the speakers are in the back, and I have to do the same thing that every iPad owner has to do, and you have to cup it so the sound bounces off and comes at you. It's just, it's so annoying. But yeah, this has front-facing speakers, and like I said, if you want to get it, you can pre-order it now or tomorrow, and if you do pre-order it and buy it, Verizon will also throw in a pair of Sony MDR NC31EM noise-canceling headphones, and I said that the first time. Pretty cool. Yeah, so this is very, very interesting that Sony would go to Verizon and not T-Mobile or Sprint. Like, Sony and Verizon don't really touch each other with the 10-foot pole. It's a weird kind of exclusive, and these days I don't even think here in the United States exclusives is a good idea. I mean, I guess that's IMO, you know, but and we saw how the exclusive was for AT&T. It did wonders for AT&T, but you know, once it went all to the other carriers, AT&T lost a ton of customers. But I guess Apple won either way. But I guess who's the other carrier? Oh yeah, Amazon the Fire Phone. That's going to be on AT&T exclusively. I mean, if you really want Amazon stuff, I guess that makes sense. But this is, you know, these days tablets are kind of a dime a dozen in terms of the Android world. Now, I get, like I said, this is a water-resistant tablet, has a over 1080p display and great cameras and things of that nature. But you know, is it going to make a person leave their carrier or add another carrier to their monthly bill just to go to Verizon to pick this up for $500 to $600? I don't know. I mean, time will tell. I mean, there's going to be few customers that do, but I don't think it's going to be enough to make it worth the exclusive here in the States. So that's all I got to say about that. Now, going back to the Q&A, I do have a question from Muhammad. And Muhammad, you say how? HOW question mark. I'm not quite sure what you're referring to. I think this came up when I was talking about the differences between Windows Phone 8.1 and Android. So I'm not quite sure what you're asking about. So if you want to kind of expand on that and let me know, and I'll try to answer it here while we're here, and I'll kind of kill a little bit of time for you so you can kind of get your thoughts together. But I just want to add, I guess, another section while we're doing this. After I do my podcast and I get everything ready for work, I tend to throw on Netflix. And so kind of off and on I've been doing a recommendation on Netflix. And one thing that just came out recently was Netflix's first exclusive animated content produced by Netflix. Well, I don't know if it's produced by Netflix, but Netflix at least brought it over to the United States because it's a Japanese anime called Knights of Sidonia. And if you haven't seen it yet, before you go and dive into it, go check out the trailer on YouTube. You can just type in Knights of Sidonia. You know, try to avoid spoilers. By this time, there's a ton of them. And you know, I'm not very good at artists. I can't really pinpoint who's who except for the guys from Family Guy and The Simpsons. But from the art that I've seen, I feel like I've seen the art before in other anime, and it's kind of a futuristic anime. There's like mech warriors and things like that, and it's really, really cool. It is in Japanese, so I'm sure there's going to be some subtitles. You might be able to get it dubbed, so you don't have to worry about reading if you don't want to read, if you just want to listen. Some people are more passive that way, but it is TVMA. So if you don't want to see any boobies or hear any bad language or see blood, maybe not watch it or not watch it around children, if you will. But yeah, that would be my one recommendation. Now, I haven't actually seen it yet. I'm just, you know, I'm kind of waiting because I have to finish The Orange is the New Black Season 2, and then right now I'm just on this whole Leverage kind of bend that, you know, I didn't think I would like the show, and 3 seasons later, I watch it at least 2 episodes a night. And my wife can contest to that. I'm going to sleep way too late. So, yeah, that's pretty much all the time that I could hold for Muhammad. So, yeah, if you, Muhammad, if you're watching this after the fact, and you say, no, my question was this, you can hit me up on Twitter, LTGTony, or you can find me here on Google Plus or on YouTube. YouTube, we're going to be Lazy Tech TV. You can just email us, and I'll try to respond to you that way. Or you can find me on Google Plus directly, plus Tony Hannity's. And yeah, this is Tony's Tech Talk, and that's why I kind of like simplified it to just the three T's, because Tony's Tech Talk is kind of a tongue twister. Like the Tony's Tech, I don't know. I feel like I have a lisp when I say Tony's Tech Talk. See, Daffy Duck. But yeah, Tony's Tech Talk, the three T's, and I'll work out something. Maybe I'll even change the name altogether. But it was a lot of fun. If you have any questions or comments regarding the subject matters that I talked about tonight, or if there's something I completely missed and you said, oh, I really wanted you to talk about this, why didn't you talk about this? Let me know. I'd be glad to maybe talk about it tomorrow or the day after that, or I'll just write like a blog post about it, and you can find it all on lazytechguys.com. And we definitely appreciate the support. We got a brand new layout coming in the next couple of months, so kind of keep an eye out for that, and very, very excited for that. So you guys stay classy, stay safe, and we will definitely see you next time. Bye.